repeat that again? Sure. So we're going to do questions or new knowledge that you hope to gain on the bluish green and the resources on the orange. And they coincide to the colors on the wall. The orange resources. Thank you. What we'd like you to do is just select maybe one or two of those resources or questions or ideas that you hope to gain. And in just a moment, you're just going to share them with someone nearby. So when you do that, when you turn and just talk to someone nearby or a small group of you just share your name, your role, and then why you chose this pathway. We want to just have some conversation in the room about why we're here today, and we're looking for those common threads, the things that brought us together that are similar, so we can address some of those bigger connections. So go ahead, we'll take about 4 minutes and just have a conversation with those around us. Now, this could be our Zoom guests as well. You're welcome to unmute and share. Yes.
We all were kind of thinking about the same thing. What is the most very updated, now that we're in the science of reading and the strategies around that, what is the most updated research around writing instruction?
Okay. We're getting snaps for that. So absolutely, as we think about how research should inform our instruction and our coaching, what do we need to be looking at in terms of the most up-to-date information? So thank you. Anyone else? Different? Before you leave the room today, if you wouldn't mind just taking a second, we have multiple stations throughout the room, just posting your comments and questions here for us. And we are going to look at those today as a team and really try and adapt tomorrow and Thursday session to really reflect and to be responsive to what you're looking for. So we're hoping just to see some of those ideas so that we can do a better job for you in the next 2 days as well. So thank you. Okay. We want to talk about this idea of coalescing in a community of practice. You know that I did not put the slide up. I did not make those words up because those are big words and I tend to not use such big words. But when I really think about what this means, this idea of coalescing, coming together to become stronger when we lean on what each other knows. And I think back to a few years ago when Erin actually presented at the Coaching Network, and she talked about this idea of how when we come together and we weave our thoughts and our ideas together, we become stronger as a network. And I often think about that, about how when we braid our knowledge and our collective wisdom together, how much stronger that is and how much better that makes all of us, how we can grow and learn together. So when we think about this today, this idea of just coming together as a community, please share, please at any point, if you have an idea, whether you're on Zoom, you can unmute, whether you are in the room, please feel free to share out because we learn from one another. And that's definitely what we want to make space for. There's a lot of experience in this room and online. So we want to take advantage of all of that. So we're going to begin with this idea of identity. If you've been in our network for any amount of time, you've done some work around this. We've spent a lot of time studying the work of Dr. Muhammad. We've also done a lot with Dr. Yolanda Sealy-Ruiz. We've talked a lot about what it means to really understand ourselves so that we can better meet the needs of others. I'll give you just a second to read this quote. With these beautiful words, thinking about everything that goes into who we are. And I think about the stories I've heard today from friends and colleagues who've just shared in passing. While we're waiting in line for lunch, you'll hear someone's story. And what I'm constantly reminded of is that life is heavy. And we all come to this space with heaviness and with things that are both happy and maybe not so happy. Life is complex. And so as I hear these stories, Think about all these pieces that make us who we are, and we get to choose what we share with other people. So when we think about our identity, it's all of that that brings us into the space together. So in your essentials document, just take a moment and find in the K3 section, I think I heard it was page 22. In our essentials document, there is a new section entitled Enabling Conditions. And I call it a new section because it wasn't in the original K3 essentials. Page 33. Thank you. I was off. Enabling conditions. And what I would like for you to do is just, as we think about this idea of identity and how important sharing our identity with others and really understanding the identity of those we work closely with, whether they're children or adults. So think about that as you read through the enabling conditions. Let's give you maybe 3 or 4 minutes just to read that, make some connections. You're looking this over, if you wouldn't mind maybe highlighting or circling a word or two, a phrase that just catches your eye, just something sticks out to you. Just give you a chance, if you are online in the chat, please go ahead and put it right into the chat what those words or phrases that really captured your attention are. But if you're in the room, if you wouldn't mind just calling some out, what stuck out to you as you think about this idea of writing and identity and sharing? What caught your eye?
Positive relationships.
Positive relationships.
Develop healthy identities.
Yeah, that orientation. Great, thank you.
Thrive.
You say that again?
Thrive.
Thrive. Anything else?
Culturally responsive, relevant, and sustainable.
Thank you. I think when I read these essentials, each time I dive back into it, I'm reminded of how powerful words are, right? And how thoughtfully constructed the essentials are. So I know this isn't an in-depth analysis of the essentials themselves, but I think about the work the researchers did when writing this and when crafting the text that we're reading. These words were intentional. Words like asset-based, thrive, identity, culturally responsive. Those are words that mean something and have a greater meaning. And depending where we're entering into this work, they resonate with us in different ways. So I want to think for a second about that idea of creating and developing a healthy identity. When we really focus in on that, what does that mean? And when I was really thinking about how do we share our identity, what is a way to do that? I couldn't help but think of a poem that I used to use in the classroom and that I still use quite a bit. by George Ella Lyon, called Where I'm From. Anybody familiar with this already? A couple of nodding. Well, if you're a virtual, we will share that link with you. If you happen to be in the room, someone at your table probably has a stack of these poems. So I want to just pass those down so that everyone has a copy. Where I'm From. For anyone who still needs a copy. Those to you. Just take a moment to read through this poem, and then we'll actually hear it in the voice of the author. Now let's just take a moment to hear it from the poet herself. You'll have to unmute your computer.
That porch, black, black.
Of what things felt like, what they sounded like, what she remembers. And there's something very beautiful to that. And so as we think about what we're willing to share in terms of our own identity, we just want to give you a few moments. We'll take about 5 minutes just to start penning your own where I'm from. So what would you share? What are those pieces from your memory that you would share? There were pieces in this poem that definitely resonated with me. The idea of cotton ball lambs, like I remember that from Easter Sunday when I was a little girl. Like that resonated with me. That might not resonate with everyone. What are the pieces you remember from your childhood? We'll just take about 5 minutes to just craft our own poems. And then just in full disclosure, we will be sharing these with our group near us. So just keep that in mind as we're writing. Let's just take a few minutes to draft. We have that beautiful notebook from MAISA if you'd like to use that. Their poem that really resonated with you.
We found, interestingly enough, that we didn't just start writing, that we had to go through the senses and make notes about our senses before we could actually start.
It's almost like that pre-writer that brainstorming used.
Yeah, we did.
Here for the writing process. Yep.
Anybody else?
I love, she did like a bulleted list of memories, like a quick break kind of thing, but the one I loved was the treat jar on top of the freezer. Because that, what are the cookies my grandparents?
Isn't it funny how someone else's memory can just hit you too? And it brings you like your lines.
Her poem is amazing. It really is. She should share it. But her first line started out about I am Sunday dinners, and it made me think about my current life right now. I'm really focusing on having Sunday dinners with my own family because my kids are older, and so it's just a great time for connection and sharing. And so, yeah.
I also love that idea of thinking about what my children would write if they were writing. I think it will too.
Well, that would
Would you like to share your poem?
I'll even.
Oh, goodness, okay. I'm from Sunday dinners, from gigantic bowls of pasta and juice glasses full of wine. I'm from walks along West Cliff Drive, from building sandcastles to the sky, from boogie boarding in the salty water. I'm from discipline and pride, from love and compassion. I'm from sisters laughing and hugging, from yelling and fighting brought on from having to share clothes. I'm from strength and never give up and try again. And then it was time.
Thank you very much. Anybody else, anything that really sticks in your mind or your heart as we look at this? I have a question. As we engaged in this activity, how many of you, either yourself or someone in your group, you don't have to point, but someone in your group began with an apology or a reminder or a statement of, this really isn't my thing. Like I'm not a writer. Yeah. Anybody in the room? Anybody else here?
I said I didn't write it. I thought she said writing.
No, just if you heard like
Oh,
that writing was maybe not your thing, like, or writing poetry was not your thing. Okay. So several people, I see a lot of hands like this too, which you, just so you know, if your hand raisers are like this, you are my people, right? Lisa, I'm kind of committing to that. Yeah, and I think that our teachers that we're working with, a lot of times they feel that way too, that writing might not be their thing, or they're just not sure. And so sometimes we almost discount like our own skills, but the things I was hearing, I didn't hear anybody's poem that wasn't beautiful. And those lines that just that tug at your heart and make you think like, oh, I'm also from discipline and pride. Like I also have those things. Like in my memory is going to be completely different than the author's, but when we think about connecting with text, like that's what we do, and we do it naturally. Go to the next slide for me. Well, let's end this activity the way we began with Dr. Goldie Muhammad's. Identity is who you say you are, who others say you are, and who you desire to be. I love the hope that's implied there. Like I think a lot about this idea of I'm not finished yet. Like if you knew me 10 years ago, I hope that if we ran into each other's face, wow, she's grown a lot. Like she's, yeah. And I hope that that's true in 10 years too. I hope that the person you see now is better in 10 years because I constantly am learning and reflecting. And if you've ever seen a video of yourself from a few years ago, oh I did not say that right. Again, there's always, sometimes that happens in the evening when I watch myself. Like, oh, all right, do that better. But I feel like we're all on this pathway to completion and we're not there yet. We're all growing and learning and we know better, we do better. And I feel like this really captures that idea of we're all in a state of becoming. So with that, I am going to turn it over to someone who you may not know her name yet, but you will soon. And her fingerprints are within the essentials. She's done so much work in terms of lifting up our early literacy task force and helping us to really enhance and understand our own approach to literacy in our state. And I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Gwendolyn Thompson-McMillon. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you so much. And now I have to find myself. How did we do that? Welcome everybody. It's a pleasure being here with you today as I try to talk and find my slide. Second. So I wrote a book as well, and I shared it with Jeff in the back. And I told Jeff when he shared his story with me that he's going to help me teach this lesson. And I am serious, Jeff, so you should come on up. So you can help me. He has a very interesting story. There we go. So, I was torn about this at first, and after talking to Jeff, I'm positive that it's the right thing to talk about. It's a heavy topic, but I was asked to talk about authentic opportunities to write. And what came to me was writing about grief and loss. So I would like for all of you to close your eyes. Everybody close your eyes. I promise you I won't do anything. I just actually want you to think about someone or something that you've lost. Someone or something that you've lost. And just take a moment to focus and recognize the loss. Loss is painful, but there are probably some happy memories, because if there weren't any happy memories, you probably wouldn't think of that thing or that person right away. So I just want you to focus on that for a second. Open your eyes. Here's my poem. I am from a place labeled as the hood. It's where I learned right from wrong and bad from good. I never knew that others thought of me as poor. My friends and I shared whatever we had. Combined, we always had more. Home, church, and school were happy spaces for me. I thrived in them all and made my family and friends happy. But that's not the case for everyone. Food deserts, violence, and sadness try to reign in my old community. I won't be satisfied until I can help them reach liberty like me. So yesterday morning, I spent my time at a funeral service for one of my summer children, my summer program children from several years ago. Maisie was a very interesting little boy. Like many boys, you know, he did boy stuff, whatever we call that. He was the kind of kid who had sparkling eyes. He had a beautiful high voice. He was in the summer program when he was about 8 years old, from 8 to 10. And he got in trouble in school quite a bit when he was young. So in the summer program, I was talking about us going to Black Lake and going to the sand dunes. That was our field trip for the summer. We were going to spend 3 or 4 days. And he said, I don't like field trips. I'm going somewhere with this, so stay with me. He said, I don't like field trips. I looked at him. I've never heard a kid say, I don't like field trips. And so I pulled him to the side. I said, why don't you like field trips? He said, because I never get to go on them. And I said, well, why not? He said, well, my teacher won't let me go. I said, well, why not? Because I always get in trouble. So I said, well, you're going on this field trip. He said, I'm not going to be able to go. I said, why? He said, my mom is not going to let me. And she did not want him to go on the field trip. I convinced her that Maisie would have fun. We would be fine on the field trip. So he went and we had a great time. For the next 2 years, summer program, it was like all the other kids, sometimes doing good stuff, sometimes not, but you know, kids will be kids, right? So I said all of that just to say, I spent yesterday morning at his funeral. He was gunned down 2 weeks ago. You may have heard about it. Anybody who reads Saginaw News, I know Emily heard about it. He was going to be a senior, and he was a superstar on the football and basketball team at Arthur Hill High School in Saginaw. I spent my morning yesterday at the funeral service of one of my summer school kids. It broke my heart. I'm also a pastor's wife, and he attended church there. So the church is in mourning. 2 weeks before that, we lost another child to gun violence. So this is not everybody's life, but all of us have experienced some kind of loss. We have children in our schools, in our classes, who experience loss. We experience loss. We have teachers who experience loss, especially during COVID, right? Lots of things happen. So what do we do about that? Do we just keep moving on, keep reading, keep writing, keep talking, listening, pulling out our graphic organizers and doing all these kinds of things? Do we ignore that part of them? Remember, one of the, in the essential practices, remember one, and was it under, are we under enabling conditions? Opportunities for children to develop what? Healthy identities. That includes socio-emotional health, right? Yes. So one of the things that I learned, my husband actually majored in, his focus was thanatology. I said he's a pastor, and for his dissertation, he wrote about grief. And one of the things that I learned from him is if you don't address it, it will come out in some negative way. So I want to talk to you about creative ways of addressing grief and loss. But before I do that, I want to invite my friend Jeff to share his story. Jeff, I just went back there and sat down in front of Jeff and we started sharing. And when he shared the story, I was like, okay, I feel real good about what I'm going to talk about today because Jeff shared the story. Would you just stand and share a little bit, Jeff?
So a big part of my story was about grief and loss. I didn't even know we were talking about this today, so it's
We
pure.
had no
We did
idea.
not plan it, right? So when I was 9 years old, I lost my dad in a tragic accident. And the point we just heard, like it went really unaddressed. People kind of either tiptoed around you or whispered about you or said nothing because, where I was raised and where my family came from, it was very much about like, hey, if we don't say anything, maybe it goes away. Or if we ignore the problem, it's not like your annoying little cousin, if you ignore it, it doesn't go away. But like, so nobody really quite knew what to do. I'm an only child. So nobody quite knew what to do or how to handle it, because it was sudden, it was tragic, it was catastrophic, you choose the word. But it mattered, when that happened, when you don't have any way to address grief and loss or anywhere for it to go, and you don't really have people who understand trauma-informed stuff in your life, it manifests itself in a bunch of other ways. And those ways are usually unhealthy. So I was saying that I spent a lot of time in trouble, spent a lot of time in the principal's office, spent a lot of time in systems that you probably don't want kids to be in. I mean, that kind of informs everything that I do now and everything that I believe now, because I had those experiences of what it was like when grief and loss and trauma weren't ever addressed in any sort of meaningful way. And what happened as a result of that. So this is a really critical, I think, opportunity and for us to think about this, and just also a really critical opportunity to think about for us how to deal with grief and loss as teachers and coaches in trauma-informed ways, but like the other thing I didn't need, and then this sometimes happened too, was people were trauma detectives. And I didn't need that either in my life, right? Like I didn't need people fishing around for every little part of how I was feeling or what was going on with my family or what was going on, was up at the time. So I think processing through this is really critical to nurturing the social emotional support of the people in our lives.
Now give Jeff a hug for me. Give Jeff a hug for me. I'm a hugging person. Okay, so writing, when we think in terms of grief and loss, these are the three things that happen. It boosts the immune system. This is from a Harvard study, by the way, medical. It increases mental and emotional health. And it decreases anxiety because what happens to children when they experience grief and loss, often you'll see anxiety come from that. And we may not even know the source. Now, Jeff's experience was catastrophic. It was major. All of us would agree. Losing our dad at 9 years old would be really tough. But this could be something like losing a fish or losing some other pet. Like children can experience loss from various kinds of things. So that's what it does, and it encourages self-expression. It encourages self-exploration and self-discovery when we talk about writing. Now, I want to be clear that I'm not only focused on K3, but pre-K as well, because drawing or writing is also writing. Yes, thumbs up on that? Okay. So is writing to address grief and loss a thing? Is it important? Well, Jeff just shared with you. But statistically speaking, 1 out of 14 children are suffering from grief and loss. And I had to put up my own stats from our city, Emily. I know we're not super proud of it. I know all of you are not from Saginaw, but every city has some kind of issue. There's grief and loss everywhere, but we are the fourth most dangerous city in America. And essential practice number 6 recommends that we address things that are meaningful to children. Certainly, grief and loss is meaningful, even if they don't recognize that that's what they're experiencing. And I'll be sure to share this with you guys, so you don't have to worry about taking copious notes. I'll be sure and share the slides with you so we can move along. So I believe when we talk about writing, any kind of writing, we should always provide mentor text, because mentor text gives examples of various kinds of things, including authors who look like the children, the linguistic issues that Tanya was talking about earlier, all of those kinds of things. So I believe in couching everything in literature, everything. Now, literature includes lots of different things. That can be YouTube videos, can be all kinds of different things, digital text, videos, songs, all of those kinds of things. And so I'd like to share a mentor text with you. And then actually have you experience what I'm talking about. So let's practice. Anybody? Fine. Tell me about Kobe Bryant, somebody. Basketball player. Do you know anything about his death? What happened? A helicopter. Come on, talk more to me. Tell me what happened.
His daughter was traveling to a basketball tournament. His daughter, the coach.
Yeah, his daughter was with him. Do you remember her name? I know, right? That was like one of the most tragic things ever. And while I'm talking to you, I'm looking for the. There it is. There it is. Thank you. All right. And then passed away in 2020. That was the beginning of 2020, one of the most terrible things that happened. So I'm going to share my sound. I think I have to do that.
Written by Rooted In, illustrated by Prince G. Kobe was a man with masterful hands. He worked hard at his craft and executed his plans. He could move and spin and dunk and twirl. To some, he was the greatest player in the world. Gianni was his girl. She also played ball. She was proud of her dad, wins, losses, and all. Hand in hand, they left the world behind. It broke our hearts. It blew our minds. But we felt better when we heard Kobe say, Goodbye to all. I didn't come to stay. I came to show you how to be your best every day. With hard work, you're sure to find your way. My time has come. I have to go. Mambacita's with me, but you must know, we'll be all right. This is a beautiful place. I'll see you here when you finish your race. G and I are shooting hoops, so don't cry. We're in basketball heaven in the sky. These tickets you don't need to buy. And I promise all of you, I can still fly. Kobe and G.
Emily, you know, I need your help. She would be moving it right from one place to the other. But there was the illustration of Kobe with a 4:30 a.m. clock, right? And what was happening in that particular picture? He was working out, lifting weights. So one of the things about Kobe is that he got up at 4 every morning and he worked out at 4:30. So he had this like unbelievable work ethic. That's one of the things that was actually my son. He wrote that. He actually put the music together with that. Yeah, my son Joshua. You know the article, Joshua hates school but loves Sunday school, saying Josh. He actually ended up all right. But anyway, so yeah, those are some of the good memories. So lessons learned. Let me just pull this up now. I got it here. One of the things that you can do with a mentor tax is actually give a prompt. For example, think about someone or something that you lost, draw a picture and or write about something that you learned while spending time with the person or thing, or draw and or write about what you missed the most. So giving students an opportunity to choose. Do they want to talk about what they learned from them or something that they missed the most? So take a moment and do that yourselves, please. I appreciate you so much for participating in the prompt. But no tears, unless you have to. It's okay, because running is good. Okay, maybe one more minute. And if you could just take a moment and turn and talk and share the thing you missed the most or a quick lesson learned. And then I'm going to ask 3 people to share out. So decide who you are or I'll choose you.
So neither. I just, yeah, I have my grandma. I just.
It'll be okay if we hear them. Okay, so Did you want to share? Did you want to share? Look like you were wiping? No? Yes? You want to share? Okay, so we got a couple of people. What's your name? Michelle? Okay, Michelle, and what's your name? Okay, so we, and ask for somebody online. We got a volunteer. We got somebody? Tell them we're gonna just call on them. They better come on. Okay, we have Michelle who's going to share first, and then Jen, and then someone online. Okay, Michelle. I'm Michelle too, by the way.
Nice to meet you, Michelle. I kind of did a little bit of both and didn't jot down a ton, but I lost my brother very tragically in the last couple years. It's been hard. I'm still going through grief and process like many of you probably are too. So I miss this. He was a police officer, so I miss that snarling grin, stereotypical look in the eye. I miss shared experiences. We were close in age where I had a younger brother that was 12 years younger than me. So we don't have those shared experiences. So I miss those shared experiences. I learned hard work. He was a workaholic, hard work, honesty, farming, gardening. I miss the vegetables out of the garden right now. I miss those things right now. Right now, he would have been throwing zucchinis at me and eggs from the chickens. And so I miss those things.
Oh, thank you, my dad. And see, as teachers, when we share that, then we make ourselves vulnerable and we're human. So then our students can do that as well. Jen.
Right, so I shared that it's about my father. I lost him a while ago.
I told her I'm a daddy's girl too, so I might have to get this as well.
So the first thing I had to put on here was our long debates. Like, you know, my dad, like, you could really challenge thinking, and we'd always had these long debates and sharing knowledge with each other. He made the best smoked fish and country ribs, and I don't even eat meat anymore. I would so eat that if he was there to make it. And gardening, big gardener, canned tomatoes. The fact that he was a grandpa. He gave all of the grandkids these really special names. And so it's a future tattoo for my daughter, my niece and I, but my daughter sings a lot. My son talks a lot. And my niece dances a lot. And
Oh my God.
they got these names when they were little, and it just held true to, you know, they're all teenagers now, and they all hold true. The fact that he loved the winter so much, and I love and embrace the winter also, and just splitting wood, that was always the thing, was, you know, we had a wood stove and having that and doing that in the winter.
Beautiful, thank you. So, you know, death is a part of life, and when we teach cycle of life in science, you know, things die, and it's fine to talk about these things with our students. Do you have someone? Do we have
do.
someone
This
online?
is Sarah.
Okay,
So Sarah, if you want to go ahead and unmute.
Sure, hopefully you can hear me. I just kind of jotted about our family dog, Bella, who she died, it's probably like a year and a half ago now. And I won't read all of the things I wrote, but I touched on just the memories that we had with our dog, because so many of them have to do with like my children and the family experiences. So, you know, I wrote about those.
Oh, thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
So just quickly, because I know our time is getting biased, but thank you so much, everybody, for sharing. Additional writing ways to address grief and loss are letters, memoirs, poetry. We did some of that earlier. Reflections, quotations, you know, what's the quote that you remember? I know you probably got something you did. Fiction, so that students can actually take the memories and turn it into a fictitious story and just use their imagination to do that. And here's some, you know, books that you might want to use as mentor text, or you can talk to me about the mentor text that I shared. We have additional books as well. And thank you so much for sharing with me today. This is a very heart-touching experience. When we talk about grief and loss, is real, but please do take care of yourselves and make sure that you allow yourselves time to grieve, time to talk about losses, and allow that for your students as well. We all need grace. All right, thank you.
Before you come out, just a couple quick announcements. Please take all your things with you. We can't leave our belongings in the conference center overnight. If there are any diverse tech set participants here and you want to grab your books today, you can. They're set up in conference room B. There are boxes we can label those boxes and leave them in that conference room if you want to get those today. And if there are any open schools people here, you've been asked to please come to the Lakes room. So thank you so much. Have a great rest of the day. Yeah.
All right.
It's all right.
Right.
Yeah, like you said.
And then you saw me here and. Yes, yep, I can get that to you.
Right, right. It's so close. So the thing is. Basically, got away from me the last couple of years and I was, yeah, way like, would it have mattered if I had kept, if I had, when I really, and then. A couple of years ago, I saw it. So the best thing you can do is make sure you take it yourself and don't run those people who say you can't reach them. And if it doesn't work, you know, you did your best, and that's what matters. Are you still? Okay. Yeah.
I know what he's been doing. Not far, but they still do.
Yeah. Whatever. So that was my answer. Yeah. So it's now that I'm gonna, yeah.